particularly the views of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, who was very much concerned about this, of the representation of the minorities. Dr. Ambedkar applied his mind on the representation of minorities, both religious and social. And he looked into the problem that in a society which is characterized by a large number of minority group, diverse group, associated with caste, religion, ethnicity, there emerge a problem of inadequate representation of minority because of their population share in the country. Therefore, right from 1920 to 1947, he has expressed his view in various forums. The reason as to why this problem will emerge or persist, and then also he tried to give the solutions. I do not see many other academicians who has really applied their mind in greater detail. He not only dealt with this issue from the early 20s when he entered into the politics and asked for the political representation for the depressed classes, that is the scheduled caste, from 1920 to 1935, because finally he got the representation, political representation for the scheduled caste in 1931 through Pune Pact, and then they were included in the 1935 Act. But then the issue continued in the Constitution Assembly, and therefore he dealt this issue in a much more substantial way in a booklet or small memorandum, what is called Communal Deadlock and Way to Solve It, which was published in 1946. And he gave the proposal there. He examined the problem theoretically, and he gave the solutions. And these solutions were repeated in his the memorandum State and Minority, which is submitted to the Constitution Assembly. State and Minority was in a way the constitution of Dr. Ambedkar. So this gives us an opportunity to understand his view on this particular question. The first thing is the definition of the minorities. One of the primary criteria is, of course, the population. The population of some of the group is much smaller compared to the majority. If you take religion, or if you take caste, or if you take the indigenous character. So if you take the criteria of population, then Muslim, which account about 14-15% of population, the Christian about 1%, European at that point of time less than 1%. Now Buddhist less than 1%, Sikh close to 2%, tribal about 8 to 9%, and scheduled caste about 16 to 18%. So you can see that there are a number of minorities associated with the identity, such as religion, caste, and ethnicity, that is indigenous character. Now, since in democracy, the political parties who come to the power are based on the principle of majority. Whosoever get the majority seat occupy the power, and that some of the minorities, they being minority, there is a likelihood that they will get not a due representation. Dr. Ambedkar, this was the popular concept of minority which has developed from the early 19th century, which also resulted to the political representation reservation to the to the religious minority Muslim, and then to Christian and European. But Dr. Ambedkar also argued that scheduled caste and scheduled tribe are in minority in terms of population, but he added an additional criteria to the minority, that minority by itself doesn't result into a problem of underrepresentation. The minorities problem turned into an underrepresentation if that group is discriminated in politics. That the voting is based on the communal consideration rather than the ideological or on the basis of policies. So Ambedkar sort of look at the problem of minority both in terms of smallness of the population, but it is accompanied by discrimination. If there is a community which is not discrimination and in minority, then their problems is not as serious as that of the community which is discriminated in political, in voting and representation. Even majority can be discriminated and can result into a low representation. So women is a very classical example where they constitute 50% of the population, and yet their share in the, say today in the parliament is much less, 14% or so. Or country like South Africa, where blacks are the majority, and yet they are, because of discrimination, their representation in the legislative bodies much less. Or you take example of Malaysia, where Malayas constitute almost 60% of the population, but their share was much lower than their population share in the legislature. So I think the smallness of the population, along with the discrimination in politics, in the electoral politics, is is defined or considered as a problem of minority. Now, uh, after having sort of defined what is minority, Dr. Ambedkar, then what we see is that the British government recognized the problem of political underrepresentation of the minority, and then they devised a method whereby they try to give the due representation to the minorities. And it began with the Muslims. The Muslims began to feel the problem of underrepresentation and discrimination in politics after during the British period, when there was a growing awareness about Hindus coming together. There was a movement which began in West Bengal as a response to the British, and that was called the movement of Hindu Sabhas. So there were Hindu got consolidated under the name of Hindu Sabhas. So in West Bengal, there was a Brahmo Samaj, then Pratna Samaj, then Arya Samaj in Punjab, then Hindu Mahasabha in UP, Tamil Sabha in Maharashtra, similar sabhas, and then finally it resulted into a Hindu Mahasabha in 1915, and Madan Mohan Malviya was the president. Later on, then Savarkar became the president in 1930, when Hindu Mahasabha was really established as an organization. So because of this emergence of the majoritarian consolidation, the Muslim began to feel discriminated, and they asked for political representation, which the British really respond. British were not aware about this kind of a phenomena. But in 1909, the Muslim got representation through nomination in the legislature. Whatever limited legislature and representation was there. Uh, but the in in early 20s, the scheduled caste began to ask for the political reservation. Ambedkar argued out that the scheduled caste, it was called a depressed class at that point of time, that the depressed class are not only in small in size, but they are also hugely discriminated in political representation. So similar to Muslim, the depressed classes should also be given political representation. So he fought from 1920 to 1931. And I would not like to go into greater detail for the argument because we are going to discuss that later. But he made a representation to the South Bureau Committee in 1919. Then it was followed by another representation in 1929 to Simon Commission. Finally, in the roundtable conferences, 3 roundtable conferences. And in roundtable conferences, the British accept the political reservation for the scheduled caste. Gandhiji opposed it at that point of time, but there was an agreement, what is called popularly known as Pune Pact. So scheduled caste also got the reservation. So in 1935 Act, almost the minorities, all minorities and the scheduled caste got political representation. And also the European and the Christian, they got through nomination. And when 1937 election comes in, then the representation was through adult suffrage and election. The issue was automatically taken in the Constitutional Assembly, and the political reservation was given to all the minorities, including scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. And scheduled caste and scheduled tribe additionally got reservation in public jobs and education institution. But after the partition of India, Pakistan and partition and Pakistan was created, the Congress and particularly Patel got very disturbed. He attributed this division to the separate electorate which was given to the Muslim and the scheduled caste and the political reservation. Under separate electorate, the constituencies were identified, Muslim constituencies, scheduled caste constituencies. These were dual member constituency, and scheduled caste will vote scheduled caste. So, and similar situation for the Muslims. So he thought that this separate electorate and political reservation really created separatism and resulted into the Pakistan, and therefore, although the Constitution Assembly had agreed for approved the reservation, political reservation, he withdrew it for all the minorities. Even he suggested Ambedkar to withdraw it for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, but Dr. Ambedkar resisted. So there is no political reservation for the minorities now except nomination for the Christians and Christians and the Anglo-Indians. So now we have recognized the problem of women also. So we accepted political reservation of women to the tune of 30%. And we have for it for scheduled caste. Now, Dr. Ambedkar handled this issue much more substantially um, in his memorandum, Communal Deadlock and Way to Solve It. This was a partial solution for political representation. That partial solution is, the political reservation to join electorate. The scheduled caste and scheduled tribe now, I think same thing might happen for the women, is that the constituencies are reserved for them, and it is only scheduled caste candidate who contest the election, and all high caste and low caste vote, and scheduled caste get elected and get a representation in proportion to the population. So that this is a limited solution to the problem of political representation of the social minorities, religious minority, that Muslim and they do not have any reservation now at the moment. They have to contest through the general constituency. Dr. Ambedkar examined the whole question of representative minorities, social and religious in India at a theoretical level and at a practical level. In his memorandum, communal deadlock and way to solve it, and then it was the recommendation were included in state and minorities. If you read the state and minorities of Dr. Ambedkar in the annexure, there is an explanation for his demand. Beside, of course, the main arguments are laid down in the communal deadlock and way to solve it. Let me share with you the main thinking and ideas of Dr. Ambedkar, and then we see his applicability in the present context, or his prediction, how they have come true today. The Dr. Ambedkar argued that the British parliamentary democracy, which we adopted and which we are going to adopt in the Constitution Assembly, is based on certain assumptions. The British parliamentary democracy is based on under the assumption that there are political parties in the country, and those political parties have a different ideology, and as a result of that, different policies. You have right wing, you have left, you have middle, political parties based on ideology. So the parliamentary democracy is essentially based on the ideology and the policies. Now the political party which get a majority then occupy the power. Now he said that the political party which come into power because it got the majority seats, this majority is a political majority. And he defined the political majority is the one which is based on the ideology and the policies. There are different political parties. They go before the people, tell them that their ideology is suitable, that will bring the well-being of the people, and people vote to the political party which they think is the perhaps a solution. And the political party which come to the power is the one which is a majority party based on ideology and policies. Now, if that political party perform well, they continue in the next election, next round, or they are removed by the people. So that's the concept of political majority being based on ideology and policies. So you have Communist Party, you have Democratic Socialist Party, you have conservative right-wing parties in US. Now, Dr. Ambedkar argued that if we take this model of British parliamentary democracy or political majority in India and apply it and accept that system, it will create problems. It will create a problem simply because that the majority in a country like India, where there are all the religion in the world, in fact, and other than the Hindus, they are in minority. And then beside then you have the caste and you have the indigenous people. So in a country where you have the minorities associated with religion and caste and indigenousness, and that the majority discriminate against the minorities in the electoral process, the political democracy, this British type of political democracy will not ensure an adequate share to these minorities, religious and the social minorities. And he sort of elaborated on this, that the British majority is based on ideology and policy, while in India, the majority will be communal in nature. It will not be as much based on ideology as it will based on the communal identity, religion or caste. That is the difference. It is not that there are not differences ideologically within the Hindus, which are in majority, but but in the electoral process, the basic consideration is the religion or caste, irrespective of what policies you have. They tend to come together in terms of electoral voting. So he said that this is the one major difference, that the political majority is something which is based on ideology and policies. It is temporary because it can be changed from election to election. It is not permanent. As against this, the communal majority is not based on ideology and policy as much as based on the identity in terms of religion and caste. And secondly, the communal majority is a permanent majority. Since the population of a particular religious group like Hindus is a permanent, and that of Muslim and Christian is also permanent, it changes over time a little bit, but the majority remains. And therefore, the communal majority is based on identity, religious consideration, and it tend to be a permanent. So his overall conclusion was that if the majority is discriminatory, which is the case, the minority will be underrepresented in the legislature. And obviously then they will be underrepresented in executive. And executive is the body which frame the policy, implement the policies. So the underrepresentation of minorities in legislature and executive is a major problem in a country like India, which is characterized by minorities, multiple minorities. Now, then he went on to address the issue that how do we deal with this? How do we reform and modify the British parliamentary democracy and the concept of majority? Dr. Ambedkar sort of apply his mind, and he has given three principles to reform the electoral system in the country, in the parliamentary democracy. Now, the ultimate goal is that that there should be a proper representation to the minorities and adequate representation of minorities, so that minority put together will have some influence in the legislature to enact the laws and in the executive to frame the policies and to implement it. What are those principles? These three principles around which he suggests the reform in the electoral system are as follows. First is the concept of balanced representation or a relative majority. I'll come to that. Second is the principle of confidence in the executive. And third is the principle of unanimous decision. These are the three principles around which, by using these, he wanted to reform the electoral system in the democracy that to be adopted for the Indian situation. A reform in the British parliamentary democracy electoral system in its adoption to the Indian situation. This memorandum was written in 1946. The state and minority in which he made this proposal was written in 1947. And this was even given to the Fundamental Right Committee. Now let me begin with first principle, the balanced representation. And what is balanced representation? Now Dr. Ambedkar argued that in India, he has given some tables there. In India, the the number of legislature from the Hindus will be significantly higher because their population being close than two-thirds, 70%. And the number of legislations uh, from the Muslim and other minority and the scheduled caste, even if they get a representation according to their population, that will be relatively small. And since uh, if the communal basis is used for election in the to the parliament, then there will be Hindu majority and other religious will be in minority, other caste will be in minority. And in decision making, then they won't have a say. Uh, their voices will not be heard. It will go by the communal majority as such. As the political majority is not the concept which is used. So he suggested that we require a balance. And for achieving that balance, then he suggested that the number of the seat of Hindus should be reduced, not to convert the Hindus into minority, but to reduce in a manner such that their absolute power in terms of number is get reduced and reasonable. And then distribute this number, reduced number of Hindus among different minorities in proportion to their population share, but as well as in proportion to their socio-economic condition and discrimination. So he allocated those seats uh, to Muslim and to scheduled caste who suffer discrimination, and some of them to Sikh and to the Christian. As a result, what happened is that the share of the minority increased and share of the majority reduced. It is not that the majority is converted into minority, but its overwhelming dominance get reduced. So he said that this is the concept of relative majority. Relative majority. There is a majority for Hindu, but it is a relative majority, and it is a balanced representation whereby the minority also get a say. If all minority come together, for example, they may constitute a majority uh, along with all minorities, and so they will have some say, a important say in the parliament. So that is the first solution that they has given. The second criteria and principle that he has given was the principle of confidence. Now, what is this principle of confidence? He has not named it as a principle of confidence, but I sort of name it based on the content in the argument that he made. He said that even if you have a balanced representation, still the majority party will be a sort of communal party, and they will control the executive. Now, executive means what? Ministries and the political bureaucracy, not the civil bureaucracy, but political bureaucracy. Uh, Political bureaucracy is the bureaucrat which are appointed when the political party come to the power. As the political power loses, a new party comes, they bring their own political bureaucrats, the OSDs and secretaries and many other cadre, while the large bureaucracy remain the same. Now, and he said that the executive is very important because it makes policies and implement them. And therefore, he said that the minority should have a confidence in the majority executive. That yes, this majority, although it's a majority based on communal consideration, but the confidence is developed because those who occupy the executive positions are good people. Now, how do we ensure that? So Ambedkar suggested the following criteria. That is that the prime minister of the majority party, although it may be a communal majority, the prime minister of the majority party would be elected by all the member of parliament in the parliament. At the moment, the political party decide who will be the prime minister. But in Ambedkar's proposal, that the majority party can nominate the candidate, 3, 4, 5, whatever candidate from their own political party, and all representative Lok Sabha, for example, from majority party as well as all minority party will vote for the person, and those who get the highest vote of the member of members, he or she will be the prime minister. So that which means that if one person is elected from that party, it means that the member in the parliament have confidence in him because of his standing, because of his nature, because of another consideration. So that is the first solution Dr. Ambedkar gave. Second solution he has given was that the representative in the executive of the minorities from the majority party, which means the minority minister basically from the majority party, who will be the minister for from the minority in the majority party, he or she will also be nominated or elected by all the member of the parliament in the house, just as the prime minister. As a result, you will have a minority minister which is the choice of the majority member of the parliament. Again, it will develop the confidence in the minority ministers. Similarly, some method of nominating the political bureaucrats, which are also from the minorities. So this was the principle of confidence that Dr. Ambedkar suggested to reduce the influence of the communal majority and to increase the say of the minority through the selection of the executive uh, executive, that is the minority minister and the prime minister. The third principle was the rule of unanimous rule. Now, this is a more dangerous principle because since the political majority is the communal majority, it will tend to work in the interest of the majority and not as much as in the interest of the minority. The part of it will be taken care of by balanced representation, part of it by the the method of nominating the prime minister and the minority minister by all of them, and so developing confidence. But nevertheless, the majority decision will be again by the majority vote, and the communal majority is being in majority, so they will have a absolute say. No, now it has become a game like 51% vis-a-vis 49% vote. So Ambedkar suggested that the decisions in this are made by the majority. But he suggested that no, the decision should be made by the unanimous majority, unanimous opinion of all the members on several issues, particularly on very, very important issues. So if you make a provision that these are the issues where you can only take the decision provided all the member of the parliament agreed, majority and minority. So then there is a danger of avoiding the decision to be taken by the which are communal in nature and which are taken by the by the majority government. Now, this is, I say this is a very risky suggestion of Dr. Ambedkar, but he has given the example of Security Council of UN. Now, the Security Council, which is consist of 7-8 members, I think, the rule is unanimity. Even if one country says that no decision can be taken. For example, India is trying for a representation in the Security Council, and all of them are supporting except China. So one person dissent is good enough. So the decision is that there has to be unanimous support. Even if one's opposed, it cannot be taken. So he favored on large number of issues, very important issues, a unanimous decision as such. So that those decisions are taken with a consultation with the minorities. Now, these are some of the suggestions that he has given to reform the British parliamentary type of democracy to Indian condition. And he mentioned in the state and minorities also. But unfortunately, the Congress and Constitutional Assembly of our, at that point of time was not prepared to accept this kind of drastic changes. They were imitator. Just adopt the British parliamentary democracy and apply it. But never thought that we have to adjust to our own situation and bring some reform, major reform. This was not entertained by the Constitutional Assembly. And the consequences of not being considered Ambedkar's views that are before us. On all these 3 points, you can see that the caste has obviously ruled the rose so far for last 75 years. Whichever caste is in majority in a particular state hold the power for years together, decades together. There will be split within them, within the one caste, you know. But the same caste will be in power. We have in Maharashtra, for example, the Marathas are in majority, Maratha or what we call Kunbi, they are divided at time. But ultimately the power remains with the Marathas because they are in majority. So the caste plays a very important role by giving the communal base to the electoral democracy. But now we never imagined that religion will emerge as a strong element, as a strong communal element in the electoral politics. And you can at times see that how big majority can come to power based on communal concentration. And you have some of the example. You have example in UP. Now you have a recent example in Maharashtra. So the uh, the the communal electoral base has resulted into a communal majority, which is very overwhelming and very dominant, and minority do not have any place in that as such. Some of the communal minorities are part of this party, but they have not much say. I mean, they with their own eyes they see the decision which goes against them. For example, the way Dr. Ambedkar was treated in the last time by calling him the sort of making a derogatory remark against the Dalit in that party could not say anything. Nobody show a courage to oppose it. So that is the first consequences which Ambedkar predicted, they came true. Second is this majority rule. If you are in majority, you can just rule the roast and bypass the minority like anything. Because there is a majority rule, 51 versus 49. If there is a unanimous rule on certain matters of significance, importance of nation, say one election, one this thing, and there are others, then it is only unanimous decision which will take the decision. There are examples where all parties have come together. I think GST and one or two examples are there where all majority party, all the parties sort of supported them. But there are several issues which concern the minorities. They are taken by the majority opinion only. That is because that the unanimous principle is not applied, which Ambedkar suggested. And the principle of confidence. You find that The people who hold a particular opinion about the minorities are holding the power. They are the minister for minorities. I need not name. As soon as they became the minister, some of the schemier minorities were withdrawn. Had there been a Ambedkar suggestion that a person who is elected by entire house from the majority party as a minister of minorities, that perhaps provided some safeguard against the communal decision. So you can see that the in addition to one of the earlier enemies of caste, now the enemy of in the form of religion has emerged and undermined the democracy very seriously. So Ambedkar was the only person who always predicted. Predicted because he examined the causes for success and failure for the democracy. There are, he has not written much on constitution. He said that it is self-explanatory, but there is a lecture of his on 26th of November, last lecture, Thanksgiving lecture, where he warns that I am very worried that our own internal enemies will not lead to the undermining of the nation, and that is what precisely being happening now. And then he talked about that for success of democracy, you require economic democracy and social democracy. But he gave a lecture in DAV College, Jalandhar, where the topic was what are the chances of success of political democracy in India, and he gave the reason of less success. I don't want to go into that. But then he gave a lecture in the Law College Library in Pune, wherein he specifically mentioned the condition for success of political democracy in India. And there he pointed out, and he was very much concerned about it, that it may not succeed. We are in a working democracy. And if you have listened to a very recently discovered in his interview on BBC, that interview was given in 1952, but it was located very recently, about a year ago. And it is only on the BBC representative asked him that what are the chances of success of political democracy? And he very abruptly said that no chances. And he said, how soon the democracy will fail? He said, very pretty soon. That is his word. And he said that there has to be some effort to deal with the problem of caste, to deal with the problem of religion. Friend, these were some of the thinking of Dr. Ambedkar I wanted to share with you, because one of the reasons is that I am an economist. I am not political scientist, but I am a student of Dr. Ambedkar. Unfortunately, the political scientists in India, they have not studied Ambedkar's writing, some of the major writing of Ambedkar. Other writing, they do it, but this where he has examined and make prediction. In fact, in one of the seminar where I shared this view, two top-ranked political scientists didn't agree. And I was shocked and surprised. So this is what I want to share with you. Thank you very much.
So to continue, I have a query.
Please go ahead.
I am Group Captain Dinesh, retired from Indian Air Force.
Yeah.
So every day, I am from UP, from Lucknow presently. So like you mentioned in your lecture, the situation is very bad in UP. I think it is, the statement cannot depict the exact situation. I am living in a posh colony where we are all Indian Army, Navy, Air Force officers and others, they are living. Now today there was a hot topic some unit some house is sold to Muslim. So today's hot topic in our society was how they can sell it to a Muslim.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, the rumors keep making rounds. You all must decide we should not buy things from Muslims. Now this has become everyday's affair, which is fueled by social media. We keep listening, and I'm also in contact with so many Muslim leaders of Lucknow and UP, and few minority leaders, but I don't see any reaction. I don't see any discussion on that. Only for one odd day, they say, yes, it is wrong, but there is no concerted effort at all. Now, here my query is there any ready-made solution, constitutional remedy available to take action against such discrimination? Or what remedy can be thought of in the given situation? Because it is becoming worst and worst day by day. Thank you.
Yeah, you raise a very important question. See, the point is that my lecture was confined to discrimination in electoral politics, electoral process, and its consequences resulting into the underrepresentation of minorities, both caste and religion. For caste, we have developed a system of political reservation, but for minorities, there is no solution. There was, but it was withdrawn. But the scheduled caste as well as Muslim face discrimination in the other sphere. They face discrimination in social sphere. They face discrimination in economics, economic sphere, and other sphere as well, the marriages. So that discrimination is also there, obviously. As far as the scheduled caste is concerned, I have done, and some people have done, a considerable research on economic discrimination and social discrimination of the scheduled caste. Since the scheduled caste discrimination, untouchable discrimination is very rampant, and it is very written clearly in Manusmriti and other Shastras, and the Constitution abolished untouchability in Article 17. As a follow-up action, there were acts passed. So Untouchability Offence Act of 1955 and Atrocity Act of 1989. These acts prohibit discrimination in public spaces, various public spaces. To a certain extent, limited extent in economic spaces also. Now, but Constitution also provide the Article 15. Constitution debarred discrimination based on identity, race, color, caste, and religion. But there is a legal provision for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, but there is no such legal safeguard to the Muslims or other Christian, other religious group. So legal solution, legal safeguard is one solution, which is being used for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. The same should be used even for the religious. Now, whatever limited research we have done, we discovered that as you are very right, that the Muslim face discrimination in housing, buying plot or buying houses, but also in renting. The Muslim would not get generally would not get the houses in the Hindu locality and other locality because their identity is very clear from their name, and several reasons are given. But Muslim also face discrimination in business. They also face discrimination in employment. You know, the proportion of Muslim in a regular salaried job is only 4 to 5% as against their population of 15%. Scheduled castes also face discrimination in regular salaried market, but reservation at least secure some share to them. And there are selective studies on the Muslims where they face discrimination in business, sale and purchase of goods and services, as you are rightly pointed out. There may be discrimination in capital and loans. Beside, of course, there is a discrimination in the social relations, you know, the marriages and sitting and eating together and other things. So I think the problem of discrimination as faced by the Muslim first need to be studied, and there has to be provided solution. We have solutions. We have used those solutions for the scheduled caste. One is the law, legal safeguard against discrimination. Second is ensure some fair share to them through the process of reservation. So policies are there. After Sachar committee, some policies were taken by the Congress at that point of time. And that was not strictly speaking reservation, but they identified 99 districts where predominantly the population of the Muslim was relatively large. So a fund were given for improving the infrastructure, you know, road, drinking water, electricity, and other things. So some religion-based policies are developed during at that point of time. But you are very right that there is a need for a solution. First, to study the nature of discrimination in social, economic, and political sphere. Now, the impact on political sphere representation is now quite obvious. You know, their share in the parliament is really much, much below than the share in the population. But discrimination in social, economic is also an issue which need to be addressed.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure.
Sir Adapa garu, please unmute and you can. Sir, before,
Yes.
okay. Sir, please take a floor and ask the question, sir.
Yes. May I point out that Professor Sukhadeo's Thorat's perspective on the minorities, and in particular, I would like to know the kind of social discrimination that the Dalits face in general are not faced by the minorities, including Christians, Muslims, and others. How do we conceptualize the difference between the discrimination of the minorities and the discrimination of the Dalit Bahujans? Because the scale is also different, and the kind of discrimination that is faced by the lower social orders, and in some cases, in some states, the OBCs are also treated like Dalits and discriminated, and particularly in the context of the rise of Hindutva in the recent past. I think this discrimination, the justification for it, so to speak, or the kind of social acceptance that is gaining in some parts of the country are a disturbing factor. But I would like to know from Professor Sukhadeo Thorat Saab, what is the fundamental difference between the discrimination that is faced by the minorities and the Dalits?
I think this is a very interesting question. Yeah. See, the discrimination, one has to define discrimination first. Now, discrimination in a general term is treating the equal unequally. All human beings are equal by birth. They are human beings. They should be treated equally, but they are treated unequally. So treatment of equal unequally is the discrimination. But the discrimination specifically associated with the identity is need to be understood.
Sir.
That one person can discriminate other person on some consideration, but the group discrimination is slightly different. The group discrimination is based on identity, associated with your color, associated with your race, associated with your social origin like caste or ethnicity or religion or gender. So that must be first understood properly, that the group discrimination is based on the identity of the group, irrespective of merit, irrespective of other consideration. That is the first point. Now, coming to the caste, how caste discrimination is different from that of a discrimination of the minorities, we have to understand the nature of the caste discrimination. Now, the caste system is based on the division of the people into group, 5 castes, number one. But it is also based on the unequal assignment of rights. Rights, economic rights, social rights, cultural rights between the caste. So, for example, the restriction on marriage. A Brahmin can marry any caste other than the even untouchable also if they want. But the lower caste cannot marry the women of the Brahmin. So there is a hierarchy in the marriage system. Similarly, the property right, the occupations are restricted. I am talking of the traditional system first. We have to understand that. The occupation division is there and property rights are there, restriction there. Similarly, on interdining, another thing, the OBC, the Shudras are OBC. The OBC were denied right to, if you look at the Manusmriti, denied right to property, right to marriage, right to interdining, right to education. So there is a denial of right to Shudra. Their only job was to serve the high caste as a wage laborer. This is the situation described in Manusmriti in BC 200. But between BC 200 and 1200 century, the one difference came, and that is that the OBCs, the Shudras, were given right to cultivate the land. Earlier, the right to cultivate the land was with Vishya, in addition to the business. But in this 7 AD onward, this change has come in law of the Manu. And the OBCs could own the land, cultivate the land. But the untouchable did not. Untouchable could not. Untouchable did not have a right to property, right to education, and no other right. Now, what is the difference between Shudra and the untouchable? That must be understood first. That the Shudra also did not have a right, untouchable did not have a right, economic right, social right, cultural right. But Shudra began to get the right to property. But untouchable, in addition to denial of right, they were considered as impure and polluting, which the Shudra is not. Shudra is not. So they were considered polluting caste, and therefore they were considered Asprusha. This Asprusha word for the first time came in the Vishnu Smriti in AD 300. So the untouchability emerged as a phenomena, and Ambedkar has a separate book on that, who were untouchable. So the difference between Shudra and untouchable is that the untouchable are not only denied equal rights, but also considered impure and untouchable. So their physical contact caused the pollution and Purism to the high caste. Therefore, then there are outcome of it, that their settlement in the villages are kept separate, they are isolated and physically segregated. So you go to any village in the country, the untouchable settlement are outside the village. Shudra are a part of the village. Their houses may be slightly away from the main and this, but they are a part of the village. But the untouchables are outside the village. There is a passage through which they are separated. That is the difference. So the situation of untouchability worse. Untouchability, unsayability, you cannot even see towards the untouchable. Unapproachability, you can approach to the untouchable. When the high caste talk to the untouchable, in Kerala, there was a rule that there should be specific distance which should be maintained. It was measured. Yes. Now, but if you're taking caste, then this is the situation of untouchable. This is the situation of Shudra to a certain extent. Now, for Muslims, discrimination is of a different type. Within the Muslim community, we are not going, but Muslim versus, say, high caste, or Muslim versus Hindu. So Muslim discrimination is, as has been discussed earlier, it is discrimination is that they are also denied equal right at time. So equal right in the sense that there are restrictions on marriages, there are restrictions in economic sphere, in sale and purchase and business. The restriction, they face discrimination in employment. So that is the difference between the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Muslims do not face from the problem of untouchability. In fact, Muslims are treated equally on that term in terms of physical contact and sitting together and eating together. But that's not the case with the untouchable. So, but the point is that the problem of discrimination and this nature of the Muslim is not studied. It's only very recently that people began to study their discrimination in social sphere, cultural sphere, political sphere, and economic sphere. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, Arun Kote have a question, I think.
Hi, Arun. How are you?
Arun. Sir, he asking Dalits among minority are facing double discrimination.
So good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Please ask questions, not speech.
No, sir, I don't speak.
Please. Arun, ask the question.
My question is that within the minorities, there are discrimination with the Dalits, and it has become a double discrimination. They are suffering discrimination within the minority, and they are suffering discrimination outside also. And they do not have that kind of safeguard, which is called Dalits have a safeguard like SC/ST Act, but they do not have that kind of safeguard. Then in such situation, what could be the possibility and how to address this? We have seen.
Yeah. It's an interesting question. See, you know, there are two features of the, say, let us take Muslim and even the Christians. You know, the bulk of the Muslim and the Christians are the convert from Hinduism, coming from different caste. So OBC, the scheduled caste, and the middle caste have converted to Christianity and Islam. Very few high caste, the Brahmin or Kshatriya. So now, and this is a very old conversion, of course, medieval period conversion in West Bengal and Northeast. But after the conversion, the distinction, caste distinction, they have not been able to remove as much. Although Islam talk of equality, but the legacy of caste distinction between the low caste and the high caste continued in some form among the Muslims. There may not be a discrimination in the church, in the masjid. They all of them come together, sit together. Nobody knows who is low, high caste, low caste earlier. But when it comes to the interpersonal relation and marriages, and perhaps some opportunities and attitude, discrimination persists. The National Sample Survey data asked the question to the Muslim whether you are a scheduled caste or not. They should not have been asked to the Muslim because there is no caste system, but they were asked. And yes, quite a few of them they said that yes, we are a scheduled caste because we suffer from discrimination. Now, same is the story for the Christian as such. But there is before I go to the Christian, I must say that the Mosvi, who is the historian from the Legal Muslim University, when she has written about the caste within the Muslim, she observed that Imtiaz Ahmad was the first political scientist from JNU who brought out the differences and discrimination within the Muslim. But for the medieval period, the Mosvi also argued that one important point, that the Islam community, the Muslim community is not immune to differentiation. In Iran, she said that there were different tribes, and there were status, high and low status. So there were differences, there were discrimination within the Islam based on ethnicity. And when the Muslim they came from the Iran here, they carried that certification. And they did not touch the caste system as such because they were used to this kind of certification. So that's the problem of discrimination within the Muslims. Similarly, the story with the Christians, separate chairs for the Christian scheduled caste, separate row in the churches, discrimination in the school admission and appointment, and then it was gradually brought it out by the scholars, and so Dalit Christian began to raise this question to the churches then and to the Christian authority. Finally, I know for Tamil Nadu, the committee was set up under the chairmanship of Thangaraj to study the nature of discrimination faced by the Dalit Christian and suggest the method. So that committee came with the finding that yes, there is a discrimination, there is a need of affirmative action in the churches, in the schools, and other things. And finally, I think the church organization has taken some sort of affirmative action policy where they now give preference. The separate row and standing in the churches is gone. Separate churches are, I think, are no more there. And so all Christian will, when they come to the church, sit together. Then they are giving preference in appointment of the fathers and the bishops also, and in recruitment in the Christian schools and colleges. So Dalit Christian and Dalit Muslim issue is there. And finally, the central government set up a committee under the chairmanship of Satish Deshpande. And Satish Deshpande came with the discrimination and differences and recommended the affirmative action policy of some sort for these minorities.
The next question, sir, Quaza. Please unmute and ask.
Yes. May I ask, sir?
No, sir. Quaza is there. Quaza Tabriz. He asking, sir, how do you perceive the cessation MNF scholarships, the minorities in India? Could such a decision potentially signify institutionalized discrimination against the religious minorities? Additionally, how do you view its impact on research scholars from minority communities? You will find.
Yeah. The point is that discrimination is bad insofar as it involves denial of equal right. And if you are denied equal right in economic sphere, particularly in political sphere, those who suffered from denial will suffer. So if you are discriminated in employment, it results into unemployment. If you are discriminated in business, your sales suffered, your profit get reduced, and economically you suffered. So there are obvious consequences of discrimination in multiple sphere. In political sphere, we know it results into a very serious underrepresentation of the Muslims. It also, discrimination also result into underrepresentation of the majority, that is women. Women are in majority, and yet they are discriminated by the majority men, because men are powerful. So there are consequences, obviously, of minority and majority who suffer from discrimination on the basis of gender and religion. You require the kind of policy that they have taken for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. May not be exactly similar, but there is a need for legal safeguard. There is a law. There is a need of law against discrimination based on religion. Gender, we have sufficient laws. And some way whereby you can ensure them a fair share and representation and participation.
Sir, anybody? Sir, Adapa, please, you are unmuted. Sir, anybody can ask, we can wind up within 15 minutes. Sir, your phone mute, sir. Please, you are talking and going. Your phone in mute.
Okay. Sir, thank you very much. My question is that
Sir, please say your name and place, sir, please.
I am Engineer M.R. Droj from Himachal Pradesh. And my question is that as a matter of discrimination, the minority members either elected or nominated, are they allowed to put their reform matters pertaining to their community out of the agenda of the party which is in power? If not so, is their representation is fruitful? Could they reach the social democracy? And the second question is, as for my knowledge, Baba Sahib was not in favor of a republic system. As said that he wanted the American presidential system or this British parliament system. Who restricted him to do so in the constitution? And if it will happen, then what was the position of the minority communities? Thank you very much.
You raise the issue of that the representative of the minorities from different political party, do they genuinely represent and raise the issues of their own community? This issue is related to the method of election. Now, this issue came in the case of scheduled caste. For Muslim and for the scheduled caste in 1935 Act, there is a political reservation, but that political reservation is through a separate electorate method. What is separate electorate? Separate electorate means that one particular constituency is reserved for, say, scheduled caste or for Muslim, and that there are two candidates, one from the reserve category, one from the general category. The scheduled caste candidate people will vote to the scheduled caste, and the general candidate will vote to the general candidate. But scheduled caste will also vote for the general candidate. So scheduled caste have dual vote, one for their own community person, other for the general community. For the general people have only one vote which they cast for the representative of their own party or whatever. Now, in this situation, the separate electorate is supported by Dr. Ambedkar very vehemently, and other, is that the community elect the person of their choice. And as a result, the representative of that community, when he or she is in the parliament or assembly, will raise the issue and the problem of the community. He will be a genuine and real representative. Because if he doesn't, then he will not get consensus in next election. So separate electorate provide an opportunity and situation or condition where to send the real representative and raise their issues. This was not accepted by Gandhiji. So the compromise what was? Joint electorate, which is the present system. The joint electorate is that you have only one candidate in the constituency if it is a reserve constituency, and all high caste and low caste will vote to that candidate. Now, since the Hindu and high caste will be in majority, they will decide which candidate should be elected from whichever political party. So the scheduled caste candidate or scheduled tribe candidate or a Muslim candidate, for example, without reservation, when he or she is elected and represent in the parliament, he will not be as free as if he is elected from the separate electorate. He is always constrained. He will go by the party as well as opinion of the high caste. He will be always worried that he has to get elected next time, so he should not antagonize the high caste. For example, there is atrocities on the scheduled caste. Recent atrocities in Parbhani. The person was killed and combing operation and all that. Now, not many SC representative has raised this issue because they don't want to antagonize the high caste from that political party. So I think the issue that you have raised is that under a joint elected system, genuine and real representative will not be elected and they won't be able to represent and raise the problem of scheduled caste or scheduled tribe or minority. Dr. Ambedkar tried in the Constitutional Assembly and a via media method, a intermediary method, and that method was he suggested qualified joint electorate. A method between the separate electorate and joint electorate he called a qualified method, qualified joint electorate method. What is qualified joint electorate method? That you have a present constituency, for example, a scheduled caste reserve constituency. Here the high caste and the high caste, non-scheduled caste and scheduled caste will vote to the candidate. There is only one vote to every person. But the difference is that the vote cast by the non-scheduled caste will be kept separately, and by scheduled caste will be kept separately. So first the vote of the scheduled caste will be counted. And if those scheduled caste candidates, say there are 4 candidates, those scheduled caste candidates who get minimum of at least 30% vote of the scheduled caste will be considered for adding the high caste vote. Those who get less than 30%, they will be out.
Okay.
So if out of 3% candidate get more than 30%, the vote of the high caste will be added to that, and whosoever get the total highest vote, he or she will be elected. Now, this was a sort of a modified system that was suggested by Dr. Ambedkar under the belief that this will at least send the scheduled caste candidate a genuine scheduled caste candidate, real scheduled caste candidate who will raise the issue, because they will think that next election they may not get 30%. But this also not accepted by the Congress and Patel in the Constituent Assembly. In fact, this was raised by Sardar Nagappa from Andhra Pradesh, who was a member of the Constituent Assembly. Ambedkar did not raise this issue. Ambedkar was not present, so he asked Nagappa. Nagappa was from Congress, but he was living very close to Dr. Ambedkar. So I think he made that suggestion. But the Patel was so angry that Sardar Nagappa was asked to withdraw his suggestion, and he withdrew it. And in 1952, he did not get the ticket. He paid the price. So I think you are very right. The function, whether you have a real representative or not a real representative is a function of method of representation. You don't blame person. Person can raise the issue, but the method of representation is the key thing, whether a person will be real or whether he will be passive.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Sir, thank you, sir. I think I will ask Professor Adapa conclude. Sir. Professor Adapa garu. Okay, sir. I think you will not able to. Very easy. Sir, thank you very much. Your detailed and enlightened presentation and speak about these minority rights, basically how constitutional legal rights and how it was adapted in constitution, how it is in present situation and it will be the future. I think it should be more debate on this issue in future also. Even we are also thinking to have a more lectures on each issues, what they are thinking, respondent reference by Muslim intellectuals on constitution, even Christians, even Sikh, even Buddhists, whoever the minorities, even ethical minorities, tribal issues, whatever. These are all those things we have to, we are thinking to reflection of them also is very important to discussion in this junction. I think the next lecture will be the Professor K.S. Chelam. He was a UPSC member for a long time. He is a professor in economics. He is very much well known to all over India and the world. I think next 4th of January, the Professor K.S. Chelam will be delivery lecture. Thank you, sir. Thank you to all attend this conference. I thank you very much to Thorat sir to have a patient and give a direction to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very much.
sir. Thank you,
Okay.
sir, and good night.
Good night.
Thank you to all.
Okay.
You are in Simla or you are in Srinagar?
Sir, I am in Lucknow.
Lucknow इतना सर्दी है क्या?
I am also in Lucknow.
Sir, you are in Lucknow. That is saying, sir, he is
Sir, he is with blower. I do
No.
not have blower.
No.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Chalo, thank you. Good night.
Good night to all of you, sir.